Moving on to data types in Python. So Python has several built-in data types. You have numeric data types, you have iterators, you have sequence, you have mapping, you have file, you have class, you have exception. Okay. Your string, list, and dictionary, these things all comes under sequence. Int, float, complex numbers, those comes under numeric. And these two are one of the most important built-in data types that are used. We'll discuss about class, exceptions, and few other things in the future. But now we'll start with the basics, numeric and sequence. Okay. Starting up with the numeric data types. As I said, we have int, float, and complex numeric data types. And the Python integer data type is called int. Okay, so let me show you. So for example, if I have declared a value I equals 0, as I said, Python is dynamically typed, so we don't need to provide the data type here. It's smart enough to understand what I am assigning to this I. Okay, and there is a very powerful command in Python called type. So this type gives you the data type of that variable, that, and you can use it to find the data type of any variable. So if I see write a type I, you see I get a int class. Since Python is object oriented programming, everything is an object, even the variables, and this I is an object of int type class because I have initialized I with 0. Okay, if it was the same thing, I equals Ram. Okay, if it is like this, and now I do a type for I, you see, now since I have dynamically changed the data type of I to Ram, Python is smart enough to identify it as a class object of a string class. Okay, you see, class string. The Python integer is a data type that is called int. Okay, so integers are whole numbers, as we all know it, and it does not have any fractional part. We also have float data types in Python. Let's say if I make it 5.2, so we have this float type class, and this is also part of numeric data type. Then we also have complex numeric data type, which we are not going to discuss because it's very advanced, and we normally don't require complex to deal with complex numbers. If you want, you can use it using J. So if you say I equals 2 plus 3J, so this is a complex data type, but we are not going to deal with it much. So we'll be sticking to float and int. Now, integers can be considered just special cases of real numbers. Here we don't have fractional parts, while the float, as we have seen, has some fractional part as well. Now, in many of the programming languages, there are some limitations to the size of a int and float. For example, in C and C++, we have long int and small int, so, which has some size limitations that it can only be within this to this value. But in Python, we do not have any such limitation. So for example, I've written down a code here where I have taken I equals 0 while I greater than equal to 0. I'm just printing I and I'm incrementing I. Don't worry about this while statement and other stuff. It doesn't make sense to you. For now, I'm just trying to show that Python integers have no limitations. It can take any value. And so this code, as you can see, it will continue running until unless my RAM runs out of memory. Okay. So you can give any high value as much as you can think to uh, your integer variable until unless your computer is strong enough to handle that value. So this is just a example to show you that Python doesn't have any limitation for integers. Okay. Moving back to the data types. Similarly, float, the maximum value on a float of 64-bit computer is this value here. And this is again the limitation of the computer, not the limitation of Python. You can have any value, but a 64-bit computer is only able to handle a float value up to this. Okay. Because Python doesn't have a type declaration, you might be thinking that it's you don't have to understand the difference between an int and float values, but it's something that you need to consider when you are writing your programs. Okay. This will make more sense going forward when we'll discuss more about expressions and operators. But just for your reference, I'm going to share one example. Let's say you have I equals 5 and name equals Praveen. Okay. And now I want to print, or I want to do something like I plus name. Okay. Now see, if you are not aware of the data types, you might do some mistakes like this. Okay. And you see there are unsupported operand types for int and string. So you cannot add an integer to a string. So you should be aware of the data types that you are operating on and how that data types behave with each other. Okay. So this is something, this is why something like this is needed. Understanding of data types is needed. So for example, now if I change I to a string again, now you see, I get the output, right? So going forward, if you are working in data science field or any other field and you have to do some manipulations on your string and integers, so you should be aware of the data types so that you can do some effective manipulations. Okay. Now moving on, we have operator precedence. But before that, I'd like to show one more thing. So this is very simple things that I'm showing here, but normally we'll also be doing very complex manipulations where we'll be writing different expressions. Okay. So for example, let's say a equal to 2, b equal to 5, c equal to 10, d equal to 3. Okay. Now there may be a situation where I'll write an expression a plus c by 2, sorry, c by b plus minus d, let's say. Okay. And now I want to print expression. What's the value of that expression? Okay. So this kind of expressions we would be writing in future, right? Python also has some operator precedence to so that you know how the program will execute your expression. So we have different precedents like PEMDAS, BEDMAS, BODMAS, and BIDMAS. So what does this mean? P for parenthesis, E for exponential, MD for multiplication division, AS for addition subtraction. Similarly for others also. So this just means that whenever there is a parenthesis in your expression, it will have the highest precedence. What does that mean? Your program, interpreter will execute that value first, which has a parenthesis in it, before going to the exponents or multiplication, division operators, or addition, subtraction operators. Okay. Similarly, if you have a bracket before an exponent, it is going to operate on those brackets first, and then your exponents will be operated, then your division multiplication will be operated, and then addition subtraction will be operated. So here I have written multiplication division, and here I have written division multiplication. This has no difference. I have given a slash here, and what does this mean is both division and multiplication have same level of precedence. Okay. And when we have both division as well as multiplication in our expression, they both be evaluated on the same priority, and it will be just from left to right. Whichever comes first from left to right will be evaluated first. So, and the same thing is with addition and subtraction. So this is just something you should keep in mind. So for example, here you are saying it like this, but if I just change something like this, you'll see the whole value will change. Initially we had 1, now we have 7. This is just because of this parenthesis. So since it has the highest precedence now, first this thing is getting evaluated, then your division is getting evaluated, then your addition is happening. But previously what was happening? Your division has the highest priority, so it was getting evaluated first, and then your addition, and then subtraction. So this is the precedence is just required to understand how your expressions will be evaluated, so that whenever you are getting an undesired input, you can dry run your code and you can understand where you are getting that error from.